So I think I mentioned that yesterday, that that John Paul, I can't remember if I mentioned that yesterday or not, that John Paul liked to cite that expression, or the Latin phrase from, I think it's the Gospel of, is it the Gospel of John? I'm not sure, where Christ says to the disciples who have been fishing all night, "Duc in altum." I'm not really sure what the Duc is all about, but the kind of Latin that appears in the scriptures is almost a a case study, and in itself, where this is often translated. We've known Duc, right? It's the singular imperative, ducere, which generally means to lead or to draw. But we translate this here as put out, or that's what we'd say in English, right? Put out in altum. I guess it's like lead out, let out. The nets, retia maybe, in altum, into the deep. So that was something that he often said. Duc in altum, put out into the deep. That is, the part of the be not afraid business and so forth. Risk going out into the deep. Duc in altum. So altus, as we've seen in this chapter, altus aum can be both tall, high, as well as deep, right? And it just depends on one's perspective, right? If you're at the top, then it's deep. If you're at the bottom looking up, then it's tall. But I think it's only at the end of this chapter here that we see altus aum used explicitly with that sense of deep, right? We don't talk about tall rivers, right? Just deep rivers. Okay, so there's the end of chapter 12. I think we've said everything about chapter 12 that we need to say. Let's just look back here and make sure that we have everything, right? I mean, if you do the homework exercises, and you're not gonna miss what you need to know. But let's just review it quickly here. Line 6 on page 85, we saw the dative of possession. The dative of possession, Marco una soror est. Marcus has one sister. That didn't seem to bother anyone with how we should translate that. We just need to know that that's a way that we can use the dative in Latin. Let's see. Then what was the next exciting thing that happened? So the next exciting thing that happened was around line 47, where we saw the accusative of extent. Pilum Aemilii sex pedes longum est. Aemilius' spear is long to the extent of 6 feet. And we see, without a doubt, line 49, duos pedes longus est. It is long to the extent of 2 feet. It's 2 feet long, we'd say in English. That's the accusative case. So that was the second exciting thing that happened. And there's the third exciting thing that happened, the comparative degree of the adjective. We first see that in line 51, 2, 3, 53, longior et gravior. We get the whole chart, the comparative degree of the adjective, the bottom of page 92. We use quam, to express that comparison. With the nominative on one side, nominative on the other side. So line 56, that sword is shorter and lighter than is, nominative again, than the one which is carried by cavalrymen. All right, and I guess also we should mention there, it's not terribly exciting, right? Well, we've also just seen third declension adjectives. Third declension adjectives, right, are also appearing there for the first time. Brevis, gravis, levis, that sort of thing. We'd seen one in an earlier chapter, tenuis. Okay, and the chart for the third declension adjectives, right, it's on the top of page 92. And again, what do we need to note about those two charts? On the top of page 92, we need to note that the third declension adjective always has a long I in the ablative singular, brevi. And it shows IUM in the genitive plural. What's special about the comparative degree of the adjective? In the bottom of 92, again, always short E in the ablative singular and a UM in the genitive plural. Okay. What exciting thing happened after that, right? Lots of vocabulary. Parere, imperare, take the dative case, so on. Okay, then the next exciting thing that happened probably is at the beginning of Lectio Tertia, line 91 to 3. Emilius in castris habitat mille passus. Mille is indeclinable. If it could decline, it would be in the accusative case. Passus, accusative plural, fourth declension. He lives in a camp to the extent of 1,000 paces from the border of the empire. In English, what are we going to say? We're just going to say he lives 1 mile. And mile word in English, right? Coming from the Latin mille. He lives 1 mile from the border of the empire. So that accusative of extent, again, I guess that's not something new. We've already had that in the chapter. And then on page 89, Orberg explains how we're supposed to handle 2,000, 3,000, and so forth, right? We say mille passus, 1,000 steps or strides, are, I'm looking at line 97 here, are quinque millia pedum, are 5,000s of feet. We don't say that in English, right? Are 5,000s of feet. Let's see, what do we need to memorize? Sorry, question here. What do we need to memorize for the quiz on chapter 12? Let's see. Let me take a quick look at exactly what I have for the quiz over chapter 12. Let's see. That's not it. All right. What do we need to know for the quiz over chapter 12? It's basically going to be very similar to the format for the previous 3 quizzes that we've done. The first thing is we're going to write out the gender rule and the exceptions for the fourth declension, on the gender sheet handout thing. So we're going to have that, and then we're going to be able to write out a fourth declension noun, nominative accusative, genitive, dative, so forth, right? So what you see in the chart on the top of page 91. And then other than that, it's just the usual, yeah, the pensa, and some questions about the chapter. So what is there to memorize? The main thing to memorize is the fourth declension. So we know the fourth declension. For the comparative, right? For the comparative degree of the adjective, that's only going to come up on the final exam. Right? We'll do that on the final exam. That'll be relevant for the final exam. We'll talk about that more in class. Okay, so 5,000s of feet. We don't say 5,000s of feet in English. We say 5,000 feet, but that's what they say in Latin. 1,000 feet, 2,000s of feet. So mille passus, mille indeclinable, but then quinque milia declines there. 5,000s of feet in that partitive genitive. Okay. And then that's pretty much it. So let's take a look at the pensa now. And I'll just go through the pensa there.